Hello, YouTube, and welcome. This is Radio Station here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're going to go ahead and watch episode 5 of Beastars. So, hopefully, I pulled up the one form that I can play now. Uh, I was, I'm still not really sold on the series, but with everything being said and done, I do say that it is interesting. I'm not so sure how I feel about it. I think like some stuff it is missing. Like maybe it's a bit underwhelming with in terms of how it's presented. In terms of like, oh, it's like all this deep thing with the coexistence and all, but I feel like there's something. I think it's just like it. It's a tough thing to feel like it's nothing. I'm not so sure about it's nothing about the characters. I mean, I guess they're fine. Legosi's pretty nice. Is a pretty interesting guy, and like I'd like to see how he'll develop. And then of course, I mean, there's a whole thing like it does feel like the whole thing with the coexistence just feels like a ticking time bomb because these carnivores still need to eat their natural diet, and the fact they have to go with these meat alternatives just for coexistence is troubling, which ties into Bill's decision to go dope with rabbit blood, which is honestly I don't know, I don't want to say it's doping or well he's both right and wrong like in one way or another. It's not an easy thing to just kind of critique. Like, was he really in the right, or was he really wrong, or was he really right for it? Because yeah, it's just a part of the natural diet, but at the same time, it's immoral. It kind of just makes you think. What is like does is it all there is more to this than there should be, and hopefully hopefully it touches upon that. Um, I guess the thing that the problem I do have with the show is that I guess it just feels like it's trying to be too serious, too serious about it. Like that's the fear um that it could just be like trying to present itself a bit too seriously and not just naturally let the whole thing flow to it. And I could see it writes up the ship. I mean, I guess it's on a personal level that I will say that it is a pretty good show, but on an objective level, it's just more of like it's probably not more my thing. But it's intriguing nonetheless. It's kind of an interesting sort of thing with coexistence and all. I mean, it's not something groundbreaking either, but it still gives you something to think about. No human characters here. I mean, in this show's universe, probably never going to be even a reference to that. Um, the mixture of 2D and 3D is pretty nice. I will say the 3D is good, but I won't say it's the best. I won't say it's the best thing. I'm on disagreement with any of the guys with anyone who says it's better than Hoseki no Kuni's CG animation. I can't even say it's better than the stuff that I seen in most Yu-Gi-Oh series. Well, V Reigns is some. Well, V Reigns actually has some issues with like how the movement of the CG and all, but that's the whole thing. Like it does like there are times when the CG works and then times when it doesn't for the show. Like sometimes maybe where 2D could have helped out better, but that's where they did mix 2D in, which I do have to praise. At the same time, on a personal level, I'm not totally sold onto the show. Like it's not something I say I enjoy because I feel like some of the atmosphere feels a little too forced, especially with the inner dialogue and all. But at the same time, it kind of gets you to look into like what are they gonna really think, and what are the other? And you try to put yourself in that situation too. I mean, considering this is a high school setting, unless if you guys are somehow not in high school and you're still in middle school watching this, and I give props to that because this is a rather mature series in all its aspect. So we're gonna go ahead with episode 5, guys. Sorry to delete that a little bit too long. Hopefully this plays all right. So let's get this started. Beastars episode 5 in 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Also, yeah, I like this. Like I said before, again, I like the style of the OP. Just not a personal favorite. I do like the this part of OP though. Well, well, up to that point. But the part where the first part when this guy is just like sort of rapping. I haven't seen Haru yet for an episode or two. Luis, I do have I do have a sense of gained respect for Luis though. That dear. I'm guessing what's off-putting for me is that it's like a typical high school setting, and like these are animals acting like other than the whole coexistence thing and the animalistic instincts, they still act way too much like normal people. I'm not saying the high school setting is bad, but congrats, dude. You just hit it big. You just hit it big on the art on the school newspaper, the weekly. A teardrop just forming out of nowhere. It's a nice little touch there. When you think about it, though, this is an underlying problem that I have worried about since the from the very start of this series. It just it just feels like it just feels very unsettling, very unstable. This sort of coexistence is, and when something is gonna blow, it is not gonna be fucking pretty. Whether or not the series ever reaches that point, or whether or not that's going to be its purpose. Hmm. Go ahead, just cover this up, man. Nice cover up. 100% sure they were. That's a good friend right here. Nope, nope, not gonna hear about it, not gonna hear about it, not gonna hear about it, not gonna hear about it. Yeah, he's one of those. He is one of those friends that gets on your nerves, but you can't do it. There's no way you can move up. There's no way you can get around without him. Oh, okay. So play. Damn it, Lewis. I was gonna have it. Well, a deer gotta do with thing. A male deer gotta do his thing. I don't. I did. But except you gotta do it with a different species. Fuck. There was a joke I wanted to make, and I just lost. Oh, my. So it's So yeah, they have this sort of universe has their own school festival. For me, this is a make. This is one of the few elements of make or break in my for in high school settings when it comes to how I'm going to feel about it, and in the end, and the fact that this involves animals as main characters, yeah. And you're the one that's more closely related to them than anyone else here. They got their own little traditions and all too. Not this again. Just checking on flowers, man. Huh? This relationship you got is already broken a while ago. You didn't even try to make up to him. You gonna whine to someone who took his art? Yeah, yeah. I'm not buying this. Yo, oh, they're afraid of something else. Um, young lady, you might want to check who's behind you, right? You should just read between the lines with this. Oh. Oh, here we go. Deja vu. All over again. At least they're managing this psychological shit better than with fucking Shinji. With his bitch ass just jacking off to. At least Legosi at least knows what the fuck, like knows when it's. Ooh, nice 2D animation right there. Man, I want to be completely into this show in all honesty, but I'm still have my there's some this silent that sense of silenceness in these sort of scenes is, I don't know, it kind of gets on my nerves at times, and sometimes it's okay. He is trying. Yeah, he is just panicking inside. He's trying to put on his fucking like facade, but he is just going and fucking. Because you're on a damn treadmill, like with this situation. His situation is much worse than ours, in all honesty. When you think about the situation in here. There's some sort of what? How do you describe this? Lots of stuff that he could have said, but he does not. Well, you're trying to see if she can how big she can take it. Fuck. Uh, I gotta get that my damn mind out of. You do know she's talking about this rather suggestive stuff pretty casually too. Well, might as well just have them in separate dimensions. She's trying to suppress her own instinct too, to just run away as like a praise instinct. That they're both panic. They're both like having a lot of shit going on, like inside their heads, and it's just so. How many sentences? Like Legosi barely said anything. Like it was really hard to just carry this convo, and Legosi barely says anything. Well, besides asking questions. Nice music. Who's singing this one? Well, she gives you. It's not that he asks for her name. It's more like she just lets him, like, just goes forward and decides to let him, like, tell him her name, and then that's a, it's a really funny situation, but that was a really nice way to play it out. All right, I might be more sold. I think I can be more sold onto the show, as the series goes on, because I do want to see, like I've said before again and again, I do want to at least see where Legosi's um, character development goes, because in he's someone where like it's not something I would say is unique, because by itself, I'm thinking the unique part about this show is that it's pulling together the thing of coexistence into a high school setting while also trying to critique someone who is antisocial, the antisocial development, just putting it together, and then the characters are animals, and that's what's the real draw into it. I think it creates its own it by this way it creates its own sort of identity to it, which I still was not particularly sure about, because I'm still have my issues with how some of the atmosphere is held. Like sometimes it feels a bit too self-inserted with some of the character, where some of like the quiet atmosphere, or like how sometimes the drama can feel a little bit too weird at times. I mean, if you remember from the previous episode, like the whole thing with Bill was rather in was rather entertaining, but at the same time, it was just kind of wow, it's kind of out of left field out of left field there. But I I do I do appreciate it trying to it's trying to set its own identity at this point. Um, it all comes down to whether or not stuff starts to wear itself out. And if this is a single core, then I don't think that's going to be a problem. If it's a multi-core, then it could be a problem. But at the same time, I don't want it to be shallow too, because I still want to know about the whole background behind the whole thing. Now the standards I have with the series, with the standards I have for other, supposedly lighter series, is because those lighter series, no other lighter anime shows, I mean, with their own sort of, intent. They have some it is yes, and my personal feelings about a certain show will have some biasness for me, but I do feel like this is something where it could it where like light because we're fuck, I've lost my train of thought. So with lighthearted shows, they kind of do their own thing, and for me, whether or not like for me, it kind of depends on if it can execute well, if it doesn't try to resort too much of the tropes to where it starts to wear itself out. When I'm and in particular, high school setups can feel worn out. If they're not backed up by a lot of entertainment value or sort of like the typical cut up, or like if the characters are too copy paste or get annoying, then that's a problem. I think there is an issue that kind of resurfaced what I had with these stars, and that's with the whole thing regarding that there is a sense of hierarchy. There does seem to be a social hierarchy besides just the whole the thing the divide with the whole between you know divide between carnivores and herbivores, even though they are trying to make an effort to coexist. It's just that it starts with how people are just you know the like people in life will in the social world, and I cannot say I'm not too knowledgeable about that. I can only say from past experience is that people tend to judge pretty quickly on pretty quickly in terms of social. It's like it starts, and that's why it starts to create these certain social groups, and depending on how everything is set up, there is a sense of fabricated hierarchy, like these are like the what pretty boy pretty girls over there. There's like nerds there, the nerds, those are the outlaws, and there's the just normal people, or there's the geeks, and so on, blah blah blah, etc etc. Some it the whole thing with sort of the judging, and to be fair, it's not always comes down to that point, because it always depends on like what the like people's comment, like you know similar like shared common interests, and which would group people together. But I do feel like people's initial judgment and sometimes prejudice can often lead to these social some of these social sort of groups being handled here and there. I'm not saying we're going with there's these there we're being there we're just gone we're on some literal hierarchy to where there's a ruler, there are a few rulers here and there. I mean, because the teacher's not gonna fucking allow that. Well, the teacher will give some leeway to those who are pretty nice and don't try and are actually like succeed academically, and then but that can be but I mean, it doesn't always mean that particular person is a nice guy or girl, like depending on who it is. It's a complicated situation, and the reason, and it kind of speaks a little bit deeper, uh, that um th- that this show is wants to go a little bit more complex with the whole coexistence and all. But the how far is it going does it want to go with it? Because I feel because it goes back to like on a personal level, when it starts taking things too seriously, and where sometimes it might hinder the sort of character development, or it just like it or stuff becomes a bit redundant, without without a sense of without the maintained sense of engagement, like enjoyment. Like, yes, like it's okay when you start repeating stuff, like stuff like it will stay more track as long as it's still catchy, as long as it still grabs your attention and all. But if it feels something that could be that you could easily wear it out, which I actually fear from this show, that it could that if certain elements start to wear themselves out to where they're supposed to be addressed or like figured out or solved, and then it starts being brought back up again, regardless of whatever it is, and as if nothing really happened, no effort was really made to address that sort of problem, then that's an issue that can become an issue for me. I don't think the show is going to run into it. Like for like I don't think it has that. I don't think it's going to most likely run into that situation, but there is a chance that it could. Yeah, it could. But all my qualms aside, all my personal qualms, I mean, whatever. I mean, those are my personal feelings. This show is still at least worth a watch. I mean, although I will not say that it is the most ideal things for reactions if you're not into this sort of stuff. I mean, this is not an this is not a fucking action series. Let's get that right. It's not really even a slice of life series when you think about it. It's more it's more of a drama high school psychological sort of thing. There's nothing to really suggest that it's a slice of life for me. I don't know why it's fucking labeled on there. Well, that must Mal mods must be smoking some shit, right? But I am liking a little bit more of what I see. It's just a matter of, will it start to exhaust itself? Is there gonna be is all the payoff, like all this like seriousness about it, is it gonna be well balanced by something? And it's gonna be something I'm going to be keeping my eyes on with this show. The CG it's nice and all, but sometimes the animation, but sometimes not most of the time, it feels a little dicey for me at times. Where sometimes I feel like the 3D works better in some scenes, and sometimes I feel like a more 2D could have worked in others. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah. So that will do it for this edition of Beastar Reactions. I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed. So smash that like button if you did. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Any helpful things, like your thoughts about how this show goes down. Which unfortunately is, I am kind of pissed off that this show is kind of not locked down by Netflix, and that's why subs get delayed. If you're interested in getting notifications and updates to new upcoming videos on this channel, just hit the bell icon below. Also, check out links to the description of this video, link to the other social media platforms that I use, which include my Twitter, my Discord server, my Patreon page. You can also check out the other channels on YouTube that I support. But that'll do it for this edition of AM Reactions. So until then, guys, we'll see you next time.